So welcome to all of you to the topic of healthy longevity. Very happy to talk or have a discussion with Chi Tran Brandley, which is here today with me in the studio. Chi has been studying molecular biology at the University of Berkeley, has also a degree of the Hochschule St. Gallen, and brings more than 25 years of experience in the analysis and the portfolio management of healthcare strategies. So an absolute expert in the topic of healthy longevity. So Chi, let's start with the first question. I mean, everybody is kind of tackled with the topic of longevity, and it has become a hugely popular topic over the past. Why is that so, and what is it all about?
First of all, healthy longevity stands for us living longer and better. One of the main reasons why longevity is everywhere to be heard and seen these days has a lot to do with the fact that the largest generation in the developed world ever, the so-called baby boomers, who were born immediately after World War II, from 1946 until 1964. They're all going to be retired soon. The youngest cohort is turning 60 this year. And the thing is that not only are they getting older, but they're living longer. As you can see in the chart, life expectancy has been increasing over the last decades. So what that means is that an ever larger proportion of our society is senior citizens. And therefore, their concerns about aging, their desire to live long, active, but healthy lives, that pervades our public discussion and also inspires the rest of us to invest in a healthy lifestyle so that we can enjoy also healthy longevity when we get older.
So I understand a topic that is obviously very much driven by the demographic change over time, and that will probably continue to be driven by these changes in the society. So what is the impact on the economy in our society when you look at the topic of healthy longevity?
Okay, well, a positive impact is the fact that this demographic group, the baby boomers, are relatively well off. They've benefited from decades of economic expansion. Thus, capital markets have risen remarkably during their lifetimes. And on top of that, social benefits for senior citizens have improved over the years in the developed countries. So what that has translated to is that a lot of the net assets lie in their hands. So for example, here we have the chart from the Federal Reserve of the US that shows that more than 70% of net assets in the US lie in the hands of the 55 and older. And so that in turn means that this, and this is like similar in other countries, including China. And what that means is that this group of people have enormous buying power, and therefore they create a huge economic opportunity that people have dubbed the silver economy, that reflects their consumption patterns and desires and so on. And so we believe that companies that serve the silver economy would be able to grow much faster and less cyclically than other types of companies.
So we understand, obviously, that the opportunities are coming from the demographic change, from the shifts of wealth among societal groups. Now, on the other side of the opportunities lie the challenges. So what kind of challenges do you see that are driving the theme?
Mm-hmm. Well, as we all know by now, the costs of healthcare has been rising, and not only recently, but over years. And such that the healthcare expenditure is anywhere between 10 to 18% of GDP in the developed world. And with the specter of and lots of that expenditure has to do with care of senior citizens, 65 years and older. And with the specter of this group of people increasing from about 800 million globally to more than 1.6 billion by 2050, you can imagine the healthcare expenditure would be exploding if we don't do something. And at the same time, we've been having falling birth rates over years. And so with the retirement of the baby boomers and the falling birth rates, we're going to have a falling labor force eventually. And that means that national debts are going to skyrocket if we don't do something.
So we see the challenges, and the challenges are huge and potentially very costly, combined with demographic development. So what kind of solutions can you imagine and are also linked to the topic of healthy longevity?
Well, you know, there are lots of different aspects to these problems, and so there's going to be no one simple solution, but it's clear that we have to get healthcare costs under control, and the best way to do that is actually early intervention. The goal is to keep people living healthily longer. And so the shift has to move from just treating diseases to preventing diseases. And we can do that through better vaccines, especially through better diagnostics, because the earlier you can detect disease, the more efficiently and less costly you can treat it. And also, the most important thing is to encourage people to live a healthy lifestyle already when they're young, so that when they're older, they would have less problems.
So I think we have a much better understanding regarding the main drivers of the topic of healthy longevity. Now let's switch a little bit to the investment side. What kind of areas and fields and opportunities do you see in the general topic of healthy longevity?
Well, we see 4 major areas of investment opportunities based on what we've just been discussing. So one is, an important one is a healthy lifestyle, and that includes healthy nutrition, hygiene and safety and so forth. And then there's the silver economy from the consumption of the baby boomers, and that includes senior housing, leisure, financial planning. And it also overlaps with healthy lifestyle, of course. And then there's also the need for health innovation. So novel drugs, better medical technologies, and also better methods of care. And then healthcare efficiency is very important. And that, again, is diagnostics figure big in this area. And also the optimization of care and even R&D optimization.
So I understand now that obviously the topic of healthy longevity goes way beyond the traditional healthcare, big pharma topics, but includes a variety of different sectors, which provides us with a kind of larger diversification or better diversification. Could you give us a little bit or a few examples that illustrate the investment opportunity better?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so one sub-theme that we particularly like is the health and wellness food market. As I said, there's a growing awareness and a need for us to all lead a healthier lifestyle. And this is driving the health and wellness food market, which encompasses a wide variety of consumables that promote better health and a more balanced diet. And that market is growing from $554 billion globally right now. It's going to grow at a cumulative average annual growth rate of about 7.5% to more than 800 billion by 2030. And I think it will grow even much more beyond that. So one stock in that space is Sprouts Farmers Market.
Very interesting. Thank you very much. So now, what are the USPs the unique selling propositions that your fund and in general funds, thematic funds in Swisscanto have and that you can highlight for us?
Okay, the Swisscanto approach to thematic investing comprises three pillars. The first is what we call the sustainable purpose quality, and that has to do with our investing in companies where the growth is actually driven by the theme of the fund. So in my case, it's healthy longevity, and we want high qualities, profitable growth. And secondly is sustainability, because these are Article 9 funds, which have especially stringent ESG criteria, and ESG criteria are integrated into our analysis of, our bottom-up analysis already, and also the companies that we are invested in have a relatively high contribution to the UN Sustainable Development Goal. And on top of that, we have a emission reduction target that is aligned with the 2% climate target. Then the third pillar is risk awareness, and that has to do, first of all, with in-depth bottom-up analysis. And then we are also diversified across different business models, so that no business model is, has more than two stocks in it. And we manage the weightings of the different business models based on the macro backdrop.
So I think we understand from your explanations that obviously growth coming from sustainable solutions compared or related to the quality of our selection plays a very important role. So let's deep dive a little bit in the sustainable purpose quality approach that appears to be at the heart and at the core of our investment process. Mm-hmm.
Well, in general, we believe that the combination of growth and attractive return, as defined by a higher return on invested capital, as being the major drivers of the intrinsic value of a company. And therefore, in terms of growth, we look for companies that are whose growth is driven by the theme of the portfolio. So, like I said, in my case, it's healthy longevity. And that growth is also high quality in that the return on invested capital generated by a company is, exceeds its weighted cost of capital.
It makes absolutely sense. Now, if I look at your portfolio and look at the stocks in your portfolio that are coming out of your active selection and an active management of the complex theme of healthy longevity, what are the characteristics, the defining features of your portfolio?
Well, the healthy longevity portfolio, as all of our thematic funds, is fairly concentrated in terms of the holdings we have right now. The healthy longevity portfolio has about 55 holdings spread across different business models and sectors. But we do reference against the MSCI World Index in the long term, but it doesn't define our daily management of the portfolio. But where we do use it is in the regional allocation, where we try not to stray away from that too much. And we do have a small and mid-cap tilt, because we can play the theme much more purely through smaller names than bigger names.
So we put all together what we've heard from you in a few sentences, very concentrated. Why should we buy the Healthy Longevity Fund? What is the key characteristics and the USP of the fund? So
in summary, the aging of the baby boomers creates, on the one hand, enormous economic opportunity in that their spending power is extremely high. On the other hand, it also engenders the need for us to be more efficient in healthcare costs. We need to curb the growth rate of healthcare, and that means one way is to shift the focus away from treatment to prevention, and also to promote a healthy lifestyle in young and old. And all of that creates investment opportunities that the Healthy Longevity Fund seeks to capitalize on to create alpha in the long term.
So thank you very, very much, Chi, for your comments and explanations on this, I think, very important topic for us all on a personal level. It was very interesting, and we're looking forward to have more discussions into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, René.